the more frightening a situation is to people, the more leaders have to lead with empathy, which means in very simple terms, as you're making statements to people, you lead with an empathic statement like, we realize this is really a frightening, situation for many people. Let's tell you about what it is, tell you about what it isn't, discuss why we think it's safe to go back to work and what safety measures are in place and what you could do if you have concerns. But you start by acknowledging, what it is really, how it's really affecting people. You don't minimize that in any way. So there's a number of different things that organizations can do. And it starts with transparency, and it starts with honesty, and it starts with a willingness to kind of acknowledge the human element that even though technically this may be safe, emotionally it may not feel safe to people.
Well, what emerging trends or perhaps research in behavioral science can you share that will help our audience keep their people and business safe?
Where there's a lot of discussion right now about the physical manifestations of climate change, especially of heat, but there's very substantial behavioral changes. And one of the things we know, it actually decreases safety. People have more accidents on the job when we're in times of extreme heat. There are a range of course, extreme heat physical risks, from heat stroke to heat stress. But there's all these behavioral consequences that also include things like problems with concentration and memory, increased hostility between people, an increase in aggression. There's an increase for people who have pre-existing mental health conditions for those to be exacerbated by heat. And I want you to think about this for a moment. I think this is so important to our discussion. Pre-pandemic, if we were to dial back to like March of 2020, the national prevalence of mental illness was about 1 in 5 adults in the US. It was 18.6%. Today, in the immediate post-pandemic era, it has jumped to 1 in 4. It is 26.4%. So you have to think about that. That's not just my workplace. That's my family. It's my neighborhood, my community. It is everywhere I go. That prevalence of people struggling with their mental wellness has jumped up substantially. And in such a substantial way, we know right now there's an increased gap between people who are seeking, who may need mental health care, and who are actually able to access and get it. So there's a lot of people in that lurch who are struggling. And heat can be one of the things that very much exacerbates and contributes to that stress. So people, for new reasons or pre-existing conditions, are under a much heavier psychological load during extreme heat. This summer, we are in a period of time of record heat all around the world, parts of the US, and the ocean temperatures on the land. So regardless of an individual's feelings or thought about climate change, is it real? Why is it happening? How much is human contribution? You could just look at this as a physics equation. As temperature goes up, it changes human behavior. You can assign your own thinking to if and why it's happening, but look at the thermometer and understand as that creeps up, there's psychological and behavioral implications as well.